Did trustee Stan Brown finally flipped on Hainiard for real this time? I mean, like for real, for real. First, he was loyal to Hainiard, backing her in board meetings and voting for everything she wanted. But then he was at the Dalton Park District with the other trustees in an area that Hainiard never goes. But then Stanley Brown went to the fake meeting set up by Hainiard. And on top of that, Brown's name was slapped on Hainiard's lawsuit against the Dalton trustees, and apparently without his consent.
You need to ask the people that handles that. I'm not the one that handled it. I was just riding the bike.
We'll get into that soon, but first, let's talk about Hainiard's rent troubles, this eviction debacle. When I first heard about this story a couple of weeks ago, that Dalton Mayor Tiffany Hainiard is facing an eviction, I honestly thought that she'll just pay this rent and move on. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. She has so many issues. How hard is it to settle a rent dispute? Plus, with everything else that's on her plate, from FBI investigations into misusing federal funds, to accusations of handing out contracts to campaign donors, all these problems, this rent issue seems to be like the least of her problems. There was no way that she was going to snowball this into a bigger mess. But here we are. So the person that's making over $250,000 with her boyfriend is going to get evicted. This is a terrible look. The landlord out there talking to everyone to say, hey, I want my money. People get evicted all the time. But problem is, this is not just some random person that's struggling to make ends meet. This is a mayor and her boyfriend that make a lot of money, right? Over $250,000 a year. You'll think with that kind of salary, paying a rent shouldn't be an issue. But nope, they are basically deciding not to pay. When I look at this now, clearly, Hainiard does not like something about this person. And when Hainiard does not like you, she will not do anything until she's been forced by the judge. So the landlord, Miss Hall, first thought that she had a good thing going on when she rented her place to Hainiard and her boyfriend. Apparently, they were cool. They did campaign work, even though back during that time when Hainiard straight up called this woman and basically strong-armed her to get the house, I guess at the same point, she was a mayor. She's making enough money, there'd be no problems. But the issue is, when the landlord had to raise the rent by $200 because of property taxes, and the mayor's boyfriend, Kamal Woods, saying, sorry, I can't afford it. How can you claim poverty when you're making that much money that most people are ever going to ever see in their lifetime? This is not living in New York City. In New York City, when you're paying an extra $200 in rent, that's a big deal, considering we have the highest rents of the country. But guys living in Dalton, I don't think that kind of home for that amount of money is actually pretty good, at least in my opinion. I pay more rent than what they're paying. So obviously, it only gets worse. They didn't just refuse to pay to increase rent. They just stopped paying rent entirely. August, no payment. September, still no money. October, you guessed it, nothing. And now the landlord is trying to evict them. And obviously, since Hainiard is the mayor, it's not going exactly as smooth as it possibly can. It's hard to evict a random person out of your home. Imagine trying to evict a mayor. The sheriff's office can't even serve the eviction papers because Hainiard apparently is dodging them like it's an Olympic sport. When a public official can't pay their bills, it's a terrible look on the leadership of why would anyone elect this person again to manage public money, especially when they're under FBI investigation for using public money for personal gain. It's baffling, to say the least. And oh yeah, apparently they changed the locks on the house and the garage, so the landlord can't even get in to maintain the place. Real class act behavior from the mayor and her boyfriend. Now, since this case has become even more public, I think eventually authorities will have to come in and make a decision and get Hainiard to get out of that area. I mean, I don't know what else really there is for her to do. You owe rent. The landlord doesn't want you in there anymore. Pay the rent, get out, and move on. But let's get into some of the situation where Stanley Brown is saying, hey, listen, I am out of it. So let's get into it real quick. So this was reported by the Edgar County Watchdogs.com. So there's more drama here. So the issue surrounding Mayor Tiffany Hainiard has obviously reached new levels of absurdity, especially with her attorney, Max Solomon.
The Village recently cited by the Attorney General's office for failing to make meetings convenient or open to the public. Residents have often complained about limited seating and barricades at those meetings.
The mayor took steps to correct those things that the Attorney General required. And so we believe that for that reason, The meeting was supposed to have been here, and if it wasn't going to be here, there were steps that could have been taken.
Now facing potential sanctions under the Rule 137. This all stems from a lawsuit filed against the Dalton trustees, but here's where things get wild. Two of the trustees, Stanley Brown and Andrew Holmes, are listed as plaintiffs in this lawsuit without ever agreeing to it. As you see right here, Stanley Brown stated that he was not consulted and did not consent or authorize his name to be used as a plaintiff in his case. Also indicated that trustee Andrew Holmes did not consent either. Why would they put them on there as plaintiffs if they weren't down with that? So you read that right. Hainiards' attorneys filed this lawsuit claiming to represent Brown and Holmes, but they never consented. Not only that, but Stan Brown himself has come forward to submit a letter denying any involvement and calling out this blatant misrepresentation. In response, the trustees has filed a motion for sanctions against Hainiard and her attorney for these violations. And trust me, this letter from Trustee Brown is just absolute gold. Let's look at it real quick. Mr. McGrath, that's the lawyer for the trustees. I am writing to formally state that I do not wish to be, nor did I ever consent of being a plaintiff in a lawsuit filed by Tiffany Hainiard against the Dalton trustees. It has come to my attention that my name may have been included in this matter without my express consent or approval. I want to make it unequivocally clear that I do not support this action and do not wish to be involved in any legal proceedings related to it. Please take immediate steps to ensure that my name is removed from this lawsuit and confirm in writing that I am no longer a party of this litigation. If any further documentation or clarification is needed from my end, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter. So this was definitely not a passive request. Brown wants to make it crystal clear, as Hainiard likes to say, he never agreed to this lawsuit, doesn't want to be involved, and expect his name to be removed immediately. He is not going to deal with this nonsense at all. So Hainiard is on her own in this one. So again, this lawsuit just seems like another desperate move from Hainiard, who is facing mounting legal troubles of her own between FBI investigations to the misuse of taxpayer funds, the corruption allegations, now this mess with the falsified legal representation. It looks like she's fighting fires on all fronts and she's just losing. And the problem is, her lawyer, Solomon, is not exactly the most legit lawyer around. This guy had his law license suspended a few weeks ago for misappropriating a client's funds. Now he's out here filing lawsuits for plaintiffs who did not even agree to be a part of the case. You seriously can't make this stuff up, even if you tried. So let's break this down. Hainiard is facing sanctions because her lawyer is not that bright, pretending to represent people that they didn't want to be represented in the first place. Stan Brown is doing whatever he can to distance himself from this clown show. Now, Holmes hasn't said much, and he probably won't. So this situation is a serious violation of Rule 137, which is all about making sure that lawsuits are grounded in facts and are not frivolous and nonsense and malicious attempts to stir up trouble. And when you use someone's name without consent, that's pretty much textbook definition of frivolous. So this whole situation is more nonsense here, but we'll be following this situation and see what happens. But what do you guys think about the situation? Let me know. Put in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.